It's the documents overview training session. We'll just go over what we're going to cover. So we're going to look at the different printing options in Formpak. So that will include print document for an item, print documents and labels, and also print documents for a company. We'll then go on to look at document versioning and supply conditions. So we'll have a look at those. We're going to have a look at the different elements of a document or a label, and then we're going to have a look at how to add TO details onto a document. So for those that don't know, TO stands for Target Organization, and that's the type of party you can enter into Formpak, where you're able to target specific information from that party to appear on things like documents and labels as well. So to start off with, we're just going to switch over to Formpak, and we're just going to have a look at some of the printing options that you have as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in. So for those of you who are new to Formpak, so in the middle of the screen here, you can see the Formpak Support Center. This is where you can go to get kind of useful information and training and support content to do with all areas of Formpak. Regarding the documents overview, though, because documents are such a core area of Formpak, there is lots of training and help content on that area. So we have a training plan that is specific to documents. We have a section here which is specifically for regulatory and documents, and so there's quite a lot of information and help content there. And I know there's also some document support and help content in the Help Center and also in the introduction manual, which are available in the application as well. But to start off with, we're just going to have a look through the print options. So I'm going to go ahead and type print in the side menu so we can start looking at the options there. So if we start with print document for an item, so print document for an item is an ideal tool to print a single document at a time. So what we do is we'll go through some of the options here. So the first thing that you typically do when you're kind of in print document for an item is to select the item that you want to print the document for. So we're going to go ahead and add prints and documents for citrus fragrance. So then we select the document type. So we're going to start by looking at just the CLP label. It's a standard label in Formpak. A lot of you will be familiar with it. If you're not overly familiar with the CLP label, maybe you're familiar with OSHA labels or even GHS labels as well. So as soon as we've entered the label and the item type, we can see that this document has already been created for the item. So it's been created and it's on version 1. We can also see that this was first generated in October last year. So then we have options to add extra information in. So we can record this specifically for a company if we wanted to. So this could be a customer that we want to record the supply of the label. And then we have the options here to help specify anything that we do want to record. So we can specify whether we want to record the supply or not. We can also specify whether we're recording this for a sale or just a sample of an item. The next thing we can do is enter information about printing for dilution. So whether this is for to be for a specific application, add a specific dosage, we can enter that information here. So an example of when that will be useful. So if you're a fragrance house and your customer is a candle manufacturer, often they may request for you to send them the hazard information for the fragrance. But if it was as if it was diluted in a non-hazardous base, like a candle wax on there. So we'll do that in a second, and I'll be able to show you the difference. We'll just go through the rest of the options first. So here we have the TO, which we spoke about earlier on. So the TO is automatically goes to the default TO, which if you have Formpak, it'll be set up with your company details on there. You can also add as many TOs as you want. So if you have other divisions of your company that may have a different logo or different address details, you can set those up with their details to appear in Formpak as well. And you also have the different languages here for you. So any language that you have in Formpak will appear in this drop down here. And that will give you the ability to quickly specify which language you would like to generate the safety data sheet in. Or the label in this case. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click print to PDF. Then should generate the label for us. There we go. So there's our CLP label for our citrus fragrance. So I'll just keep that available. So what we'll now do is we're just going to print it for an application. So if we say that using our scenario previously that we have a candle manufacturer as our customer, so we're going to put a candle there. You can see here that this application has been pre-set up with a non-hazardous base. So you can add your own applications into Formpak. It doesn't have to be a non-hazardous base. It's just with candles, majority of the time that is true. So it has been set up with a non-hazardous base. So then we can select to print for dilution, and then we can select the dosage there. As this is a candle, I'm going to go for 10% on there. And then if we click print to PDF, what Formpak will now do, it takes a little bit longer because it's recalculating the hazards for our citrus fragrance based on this new dilution. So if we pull the label across, you can see here that it now specifies that it's 10% in a non-hazardous base, and you can see here that the hazards have been reduced as well. If we compare this to the other item, you can see there that it's got reduced hazards on there. So that's fairly quick and easy to set up. With the labels, it's much easier to do. It is possible to do applications and dilutions for safety data sheets. However, you do need a rule script to run within the document to allow for all of the information on a safety data sheet to allow for a non-hazardous base dilution or a dilution of any sort. If you need that assistance in setting that up, we'll be able to help you with that. So before we go on, I'm just going to have a look at the safety data sheet for you. Most of you will be familiar with them. So we're just going to generate the safety data sheet so we can see it there. Here you'll be able to see that this has been created before, and we're currently on version 4 of the safety data sheet as well. So if we pull this over, here's the safety data sheet for our item. It's fairly straightforward, and most of you will be familiar with that. So I won't waste anyone's time by going through the safety data sheet in great detail. So we'll do that. So the next item we're going to look at is print documents and labels. So printing documents and labels is ideal if you want to print multiple documents for multiple items. The advantage of doing print documents and labels as well is you can link the documents that you're generating back to a project or a task. In fact, within projects and tasks, there is a link directly to the print documents and labels tool. So you do that by specifying the project and task here. You have got the option to print for a company, and I will do that in a second. But what we'll have a look at here is how you can add the items in. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to add that one. Then we have got the option, because this is linked to a project and a task, you can specify whether this is a sample and the quantity that you're adding on there, and also for an application as well. So we can add that in here. The other thing we're going to do is specify, we're going to do a couple of different documents for it. So we're doing a CLP label. So I'll do a sample label. So a CLP small sample label, and we'll also just do an allergen declaration as well. So we'll send those in. Then again, we've got the option to specify the TO and the language in the covering letter, but it could be for this item, we want to generate a cross-reference for it. So I'm going to go into the company. I'm going to say this is going to be for our favorite customer here. So it could be with a cross-reference. For those that don't know, cross-reference is an alternative code or an alternative name, or both, for an item. So it could be that it's customer specific. So this customer knows it by this cross-reference code and this cross-reference name. It could be that it's the same commercially facing name and code for all customers. So it could be that this information here is our own internal coding and naming, and every time we send this out to a customer, it's got the alternative name and code on there. So as we can see here, this one already has some cross-references generated for it. If we didn't have one, we can use the generate cross-reference option here to generate that cross-reference for us. So we've got all the information we need to add. So next thing we're going to do is add those labels for this item into our list. Then I'm going to click print to PDF. And then what this will do is give me the option to download the zip file. You can, if you've got your email set up in Formpak, you can email directly from Formpak. But I'm just going to download the file so you can see how it will appear. There we go. So we've got our, let's pull this across there. So we've got our folder here, the customer, and then the 2 documents in there. So obviously you could do this for multiple items at the same time or even more documents. But because I want it to do it in a timely manner, I did it for 1 item and just a handful of documents for you. So we'll close that. So that is our print documents and labels tool. So then the final one we're going to look at is print documents for a customer. So as this suggests, obviously it's to print multiple documents and labels for multiple items, but for a specific company. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a big customer in France. So we're going to put that in there. Then we're going to specify some items, but this time, instead of adding 1 item, we're going to add multiple items from a basket that we've got there. So for this scenario, we're going to add a small sample label. And what we're going to say is that this customer has requested some samples of some citrus fragrances to use in one of their products. So we're going to add from a basket. We're going to pretend that we've already done a search for some citrus items that's going to be sent over to them. We're going to add them from that basket. And you can see there, they're already added onto that list to generate a small sample label from them. So just a little bit more on baskets. With that, you can add, I think it comes set up with 50 baskets per user. They're individual to users as well, so you can fill them up with whatever items you want. You can rename baskets. So this one, the basket we were using, so actually if I open this up so you can see. So the basket we were using was the citrus item ones. It could be that this basket here contains items that have already been supplied to a big customer. So you could do that there. And you can add items to baskets from many of the search engines that we have within Formpak. So find matching items, for example, you can find items that match a specific criteria and add them to a basket to use in other areas like this. So we've got those there. So we're going to highlight all of those items, and then we can just print to PDF again. I'm not going to add any of the ad hoc parameters. It's just going to generate those, and then it works in the same way as before. It sends it to you in a zip file, and then you can just either send the zip file directly onto the customer, or you can obviously open it up and then send them individually if you need to. So that's really the kind of the different print options within Formpak. So here we've got the option now. So we've got the zip file. We can either send it by email, and then we've got the option to record the supply as well for that company. But for now, I'm not going to download that. So the next thing we're going to look at is the document supply conditions and document versioning as well. So this is controlled within document type. So you can see more details about document types, and we'll have a look at these 2 specific areas as well. So I'm just going to go back into Formpak. And what we're going to do now, we're just going to have a look for a document type. So we go to view a document type, and what we do is we'll look at the CLP safety data sheet, because that's one that most people are familiar with. So here we can see some of the behind the scenes working of a document, I suppose. There's many options, but what we'll do is we'll start with the supply condition. Just because if you can't supply the document in the first place, everything else is it's not relevant really if you can't print the documents in the first place. So if we copy that, then what we're going to do, we're going to view the supply condition for the document. And you can see here that this supply condition is specific to the safety data sheet. So what a supply condition is, it's a set of criteria that has to be met in order for a document to be generated. The main thing that will trigger a document, whether it can be generated or not, is the validity property here. So validity property is typically a yes/no property that will have to equal yes in order for a document to be generated. So this particular one is referring to a safety data sheet validity, and this property will only equal yes if the item has a recommended use and a flashpoint. If it hasn't got either of those properties on there, this will equal no, and the software will stop you from generating a proper version of the document. You'll still be able to preview the document, but you wouldn't be able to do an official version of the document. So on the screen as well, you have got other options, so you can specify the criteria for a document to be automatically supplied, so whether that's for sales or for samples. And you've also got other options as well to say where you can control the criteria for a document to be revised and then resupplied as well. So I haven't got time to go into that content in depth now, but we do have a support article in this area here, which will go into details about how you can set that up and which each bit of criteria can be specified for that document supply and revision as well. So we have got those options there. So that's really the supply condition. The main thing you'd want to focus on is the validity property. A validity property can be unique to a document, and you can specify your own validity properties if possible. However, we'd recommend that for standard documents, such as safety data sheets, IFRA certificates, that kind of thing, you stick with the validity property that are already defined within the document itself. But for now, we're going to go back to the document type for the safety data sheet. And we're going to have a look at some of the versioning properties. So we've had a look at the criteria that has to be met in order for a document to be generated, or the first instance of a document to be generated. But then what's the criteria that has to be met in order for a document to change versions? So we saw earlier that the safety data sheet we printed was on version 4. So say what needs to happen to go from version 4 to version 5. And really it's controlled by these properties here. So a versioning property is a property where if the value of any of these properties changes for an item, then the documents will need to be revised or reversioned to allow for this new content to show. So if any of these property values change, the one for the citrus fragrance would go from version 4 to version 5. And documents can, again, these can be unique to documents as well. So just because these are the versioning properties for a safety data sheet certainly doesn't mean an allergen declaration would have these properties as well. Some documents will only have one versioning property, others might not have any at all. And you can, again, you can configure these yourself. It could be that things aren't overly relevant to you as a business. So say if you've got a recommended use that might change, if you're a fragrance house and you only deal with fragrances, you might not want the recommended use to trigger a versioning property because that's not likely to change. So you can specify these yourself. But again, we would recommend that the standard ones that come with the documents shouldn't be kind of at least removed. You might want to add some additional ones in yourself if you've got other properties that are kind of particularly important to you. So you can add those in. And that's essentially how the versioning properties work. If something's triggered and actually a document gets revised inadvertently, or kind of there's something that's happened and actually you didn't intend for the document to get revised, you can roll back the version numbers of documents if you need to. I believe there's support articles on how to do that, but also we can help with that as well. And there is a lot of support content on versioning properties and how they work. So if you need any assistance with that, if you've got the support articles there, or we can help you as well. So that's versioning properties and validity properties. So what we're going to look for now, we're going to go back to our presentation and we're going to have a look at the different elements of a document and a label. So we've had a look at a few, so we're just going to have a look to see what they are and how they work and where they're coming from. So for this example, we're going to look for CLP product label. So we've got the CLP product label here. Majority of you will be familiar with this, even if it's not the CLP version. We've got OSHA and GHS versions of this as well. So we're going to have a look at the different elements on the label and explain where it is, how it's being generated, and kind of the different options that go with that. So we've got the CLP product label here. And the elements we're going to look at to start off with is the document content. So document content, most of which is predetermined. So you'd have the proper shipping name and the titles, or the names here of the ad hoc parameters. They are set up in the document content and can be amended if required. There's the surrounding borders here, which are also document content. They will automatically appear on the label. These, however, can't be amended, unfortunately. So then we have TO dependent document content. So we know about TOs now. We know that it's company information that's being targeted to appear on there. That can be edited directly in the software. And that typically would appear at the bottom of the label. It also includes logos on the safety data sheet and also the bottom address that appears on a safety data sheet as well. And that is being pulled and is triggered by the TO that is selected at the time of generating the document. So we then got item specific values. So this is information that's being pulled directly from the item that we generated the label or the document for. So here we can see the name and the code of this item. You then got transport information at the top of the label here. So you've got the trans ID, which is your UN number, and also the proper shipping name, which has the different components there. In this box here is the CLP information. So we got the product identifier. We've also got the pictograms, and we've got the hazards and precautionary statements as well. And then finally, we have this barcode, which is generated using the product code as the source as well. So then we've got ad hoc parameters that appear on there. So ad hoc parameters are values that can be set to appear on the label. Or a document for that matter as well, but it could be information that you don't know at the time of entering the formulation, but you do know at the time of printing the document. So things like batch number, date of manufacture, use by date, the different weights associated, they're all ad hoc parameters and are entered at the time of printing the label. And we've also got a final barcode here as well, which is triggered using the product, the batch number for this particular product there. So that's the CLP label and the elements on there. There'll be obviously different alternative sets of document content that would appear on each document, but essentially they work in a similar way. The next thing we're going to look at is custom label elements. So for those of you that don't know, we offer a custom document and label design service. In fact, that is Sarah's main role within the company, is to design and work with customers to help design and implement these documents. So quite a common request of for a custom label is a label where a customer would have a thermal black and white printer. So they only have the ability to print in black and white. Those label printers are cheaper to run. They're more, they're better economically with the ink that they generate on there. But it does mean that you kind of have some elements of the label which require color, but they need to be pre-printed onto the label stationary. So, for example, we've got this label here. So in this scenario, we've got a customer that's requested this and they've got a thermal black and white printer. They will have their label on a reel that will feed into the printer. And this is the pre-printed content that they get from a specialist printer for the label information to print over the top. So if you've got the blank label, this is what it would look like. So it's got various color elements on there. So when you print this label within Formpak, Formpak would just print the black and white content that's on there. So you can see here it's the same content as the CLP product label previously. However, it hasn't got TO information on there because that's pre-printed on the label. Then when you print this onto the label, it kind of fits in nicely with the existing content that's there. And just generates a kind of a nicer looking label. So this is quite a common request from customers to have a customized label in this way. Common questions that we get in this area will be, what happens? So we have 5 pre-printed pictograms, what happens if we only use 4? So the common answer there is you would have a piece of document content here. So if we didn't need the environmental hazard, you'd have a piece of document content here that would just specify not required. So we're saying it hasn't been missed by accident, it's intentional, and it's just because that pictogram isn't required. So again, we do other custom documents as well, but this is quite a common one, and it's a good example of how Formpak can be used like kind of in a neat way to kind of print onto a custom label template as well. So the next thing we're going to have a look at is how to add document content to a document or a label. So I'm just going to go back into Formpak again. There we go. So we're in Formpak now, and what we're going to do is we're going to add some content to appear on a document for a TO that's already existed. So first of all, we'll have a look at the TO. So we're going to view our target organization, and the one we're going to be looking at is this fragrance company here. So we've added our fragrance company there. So some of this information will be targeted to appear on the safety data sheet or on labels already. So we have the general company address on here. The main one for a safety data sheet is the emergency contact information. So this information here is what will appear in section 1 of the safety data sheet for the emergency contact information. So these can be added as well. And then the other thing to be aware of is the TO logo that we've got here. So we've got the logo for the company. You can also upload a header for the company as well, which would replace the logo in the left-hand corner. It would then centralize the company header, and then it would just change the look of the design of the document slightly as well. So they're the information that we've already got set up on our TO. So how do you get that information to appear on a label or a document? So what we're going to do is going to go to Manage Document Content. Second. There we go. So we manage document content now. So this is where we could go to manage any document content that appears on any document or label, really. The easiest way I find anyway to navigate around is to specify which document you're looking for. So if we look for CLP safety data sheet and select it there and then click search, what this will do is bring up all of the document content that appears on this safety data sheet. So some of it is TO related. So we can see here we've got various companies that are set up to appear on a safety data sheet. But you've also got the content that appears on the document itself. So things like these are some of the CLP categories and hazards that are there. We've got just wording for CAS numbers. We've got contains, name, address, any predetermined piece of content that appears on a document is listed here. So what we're going to do, we're going to add some content in for our new TO. So we're going to click Add Content, bring that across. So the first thing we need to do is add the code for the content. So this bit is fairly important, and I'll highlight which bit is there. So we've got bottom company, which refers to the content that like where the document address and the name will appear at the bottom of the document. Then you've got a dot followed by the code of the TO. This is important that it matches the code for the TO that you set up. Otherwise, it won't know which content to target or which TO to target on there. Then you have you enter the content you want to appear in the content box. So we can put that in there, and then we click save. So that's our address for our new TO. There's other, so this is specifically for a safety data sheet. There'll be some information like on a CLP label that would be different to this. So if you needed to do that, you'd be best off going into CLP label, or CLP product label, and then clicking search there. And here you can see the different company information that will need to appear on that label, label as well. So there's two sets. So there's the CLP company, and then there's the company detail section here as well. So yeah, just be aware that the kind of, depending on which document you want to generate, you may have to add a second piece of information on there. So now we've got our document content added. We're just going to go to print document for an item. Might as well go back to the citrus fragrance we were using before. So we're going to go document type, CLP safety data sheets. That's what we set up. Then in here, we're going to change our TO to our new TO, and then click print to PDF. And hopefully it should print with the details and the logo changed on there. So there we go. So we've got the new logo for the company. We've got their emergency contact details here, and we've also got the bottom company detail there. So we can do that. There's one more stage and one more piece of logic that might be of use as well. So say if you've got a customer that every time that customer is selected here, we want to automatically change the company that it's sent from. So if you've got multiple divisions within your company, and every time there's, say, a French customer that's supplied, it needs to come out from an alternative TO, not your main address. So in which case, what you need to do there is, if we type in party requirement, document requirements for a party, you can select the customer here. So we're going to go for, if we type in customer and big customer in France, so we're going to click add. So we want to add a document requirement for this party. So we're going to say every time they have a CLP label, we want to send it from our new TO for them. And then we're going to click save. So then if we go back to print document for an item, put the citrus fragrance in there. We're going to do a CLP safety data sheet. Now we don't have to change, oh, sorry, we just need to put the company in there. That would be useful. So this is the customer that we're sending it to. Now we don't have to change this TO. It will recognize that customer has a preference. So we're going to click print to PDF. And this should now hopefully generate the document automatically with, there we go. It's printed the document automatically with that company details on there as well.